This is my charcoal piece. It's a life-size portrait of myself. It's made of charcoal, and I included this tropical bird too in it because I have a pet bird. His name is Tico, and this was inspired off of him. This project was pretty challenging to work on since it's so big. It took a lot of time, and it was really difficult working on like the higher and the lower parts because they were just like hard to reach. But overall, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. Up here we have a piece of the hallway. This was an observational charcoal piece, and we had to pick a place in the hall where we wanted to study. So I chose outside of the pool since I'm a diver, and this is a place that I go to a lot. So I thought this would be really good for me to do. This piece took a while, and it was very precise with how I had to do the architecture and like all the angles and stuff. But overall, I'm really happy with how it turned out too.
I did this piece. I'm not really that great with charcoal, so it was kind of like a learning curve for me to like get better at it. But I think it like came together nicely actually, and I think it looks like me, so I'm kind of happy with it. But yeah, charcoal isn't my preferred medium. It just sort of was like a learning experience for me, and I really like how it turned out. I think it's like really interesting to work with because usually I'm like more precise, and it's sort of like a loose medium, so you can't exactly expect like precise lines and perfection. So it's sort of, I don't know, it's beautiful in that sense that it's like a different type of medium.
So this is my assemblage. I made it out of glitter and beads. I originally was going to just do all beads, but it was really expensive, so then I decided to do both of them. And I separated the color values originally and then just filled it in as I went. And it was a pretty time-consuming process, but I'm like pretty happy with how it turned out.
This is my piece. It's our assemblage that we had to do as a project. I made it out of construction paper, and it took a while to do because I had to roll each piece individually and place it in the sections. It was really took a long time, but I really enjoyed working on this piece because it was very like, I don't know, like I got into like a rhythm with it, so I got very like, it was calming while I did it.
Alright, this is my assemblage, and I originally didn't know what I was going to make it out of, but then I decided to use flowers because I really love nature, and it was really expensive to find all these values of purple flowers because you can only get them at like Michael's or like AC Moore, so they were really expensive, and it took a pretty long time to do, but in the end I really liked how it turned out. Well, originally I was going to do red, and then when I got to Michael's, I saw a bunch of different purple values, so I was like, well, I'll just choose purple. And then my face was really pale over here, so I decided to just use white flowers because it was such a pale, bright spot. But then on this side of my face, I used darker flowers because I had a really dark shade on that side of my face.
This is my assemblage. I used glitter and beads for it. It took a long time because most of the beads I had to do glue on individually. The sequins, and with the glitter it was pretty easy because I glued the entire head and then I just kind of like poured the glitter on. But yeah, the sequins are like I had to go out and buy more sequins because there were so many sequins.
So this is my assemblage. I made it using sticky notes. I had to cut them out and glue them on, and like at first I wasn't really sure how to do that. Like I tried to trace it on the paper, but that didn't work. I start using tracing paper, and that made it a little more easier rather than like trying to look and see and then cut it out. And it was also hard because they kept like getting smudges on the sticky notes, so I had to put more sticky notes over top of that to cover up the smudges. But other than that, I like how it turned out, and I think it looks really nice. So
this is my assemblage project. It's a self-portrait, and it's all done in push pins. I call this my child because I would take it home and work on it basically almost every day for several hours. It was really challenging because I chose, with push pins you can go with like one color, and of course there isn't that many colors to choose from. These were just the colors I was able to get, and making different values was challenging because you can't do skin tones. So what I would end up doing is like I would mix some colors together to kind of create from a distance like shadows and like different shadows and stuff. But other than that, this was fun, challenging but fun. I pricked myself a lot of times, but hey, it was worth it.
This is my pastel piece. It was very challenging because we went outside and we did it from real life. And it was my first time working with pastels, but I think it turned out really nice. And then my plant life is another one that I really liked doing. It was charcoal, and I really liked getting in the lights and darks and blending. And then my mural piece, which was like my first time really doing a portrait, and it was kind of challenging. And I think like these are kind of my favorite pieces that we did throughout the year.
This is my piece, my assemblage, and I did it out of crayons. I cut them up into small individual pieces and glued them on. It took a lot of hours to do all of this, and I think the hardest thing about it was just cutting them. It took about, I'm going to say, almost 240 crayons for all of this. Yeah, one of the hardest parts too was the crayons kept like falling off, so I had to gloss them to keep it on. But I really like how it turned out. At first I was kind of sick of it, but I really like it. It's one of my favorite pieces.
This is my painting. It's based on animal testing and animal abuse. The project itself was on Rauschenberg, who is famous for a lot of mixed medium paintings, so that's why I included a hook or a latch for the cage. I'm pretty passionate about animal testing, and I only use cruelty-free, so I decided to depict that in a kind of grotesque manner, kind of more. I like doing things in a more realistic way. So that's what inspired me to do this piece, and I'm really happy with how it turned out, and I think it's good.
All right, so this is my piece. The title of the piece is Spirit of Ignorance. The piece is made out of acrylic and pastels. The message behind this piece is to really demonstrate the ignorance behind racial issues that we have here in America. So over here we have the African American. He's he's not really showing any emotions, and then he's just very like still-faced. And then over here, this is a very expressive use of pastel, and it's very expressive, and it's meant to show emotion and anger and a lot of different emotions that go within that.
This is a painting I did on divorce for my advanced painting class. I decided to do this painting because my family adopted my little brother not too long ago, and he came from a broken home, and that like made me realize just how terrible it is for kids to have their parents split apart. So I thought that I would address that in this painting. Here we have the little boy with his parents' rings, remembering what it was like when they were together, and then the cracks symbolize what he like perceives as happening to his world as his parents are divorcing.
This is my piece from Advanced Painting. This is Emma Watson, if you couldn't tell. And this piece is meaningful to me because Emma Watson is a big role model for young women in the media right now, especially with Beauty and the Beast just coming out this past March. And I created this piece to convey the message that feminism isn't a bad thing, and it shouldn't be a thing that should be shied away from, because I know a lot of young girls label it as bad because it's sometimes related as like the hating of men, but I think feminism is about equal rights for both genders, and I think that's the only thing it should be about. And I just created this piece to try and like help familiarize young girls in our school with the message of feminism, and to create like a familiar person that they can relate it with.
My painting was done on Yoko Ono. She is a known feminist. She talks a lot about peace and anti-war, and she's an artist. She was really controversial throughout the 60s and 70s for supposedly breaking up the Beatles and just being a standout woman in a society that didn't value women's artwork. I thought this piece was meaningful. This piece was meaningful to me because I'm passionate about the 60s and 70s, and I'm passionate about feminism and peace, and Yoko's just very much an inspiration to me. She's a wonderful artist, and on the piece I have common things that are said against her. People call her a witch, people call her ugly, that she broke up the Beatles. And then below that you can see like the lighter things that she's for, her poetry, writing, and her anti-war messages. And I'm really passionate about Yoko Ono.
I made this painting on a guitar. I made it mainly because we could just do whatever we wanted with it, and I tend to like paint figures and stuff, and I also like like the ocean, water. So I sort of wanted to like this tranquil like painting for me.